Great. Thank you so much, Kevin. And, delighted to be at this point because hopefully, through the conversations that we've been having, that there are a number of questions that are top of mind. As we've been running through this, we've basically been monitoring the questions. And first question I'm going to ask Karen to answer. And Karen, this question is, given the pathway to closure methodology is relatively clear and simple, like you've mentioned, and enrolls the customer into specific commitments, it almost sounds too good to be true. Can you share more roadblocks that we need to appreciate to sustain this good process that you've introduced to us?
Well, great question, because it's a bit like golf. All you have to do is hit the ball and it goes from there. As in anything, it really takes good execution. I think making sure that you train people on it correctly, embed this in your onboarding process of new people. And I would also say, make it a step in your CRM system, that you can't forecast a deal until you can articulate the path to closure. And I think if you put those gating items in place, that can be very helpful. And then the right training and the right demonstration, and it takes a while to get the hang of it and get the rhythm going with the client. But once you do, and then you have the milestone in place in your CRM, I think you're on your way. But it takes focus for sure.
Thanks, Karen. I think the next one might be for me. It's what has SalesChoice learned about the value of AI in predicting more accurate sales forecasts? And much like Karen's questions, what are the challenges that you've experienced to date? Well, I think the first challenge that we would absolutely say is still a major issue, despite literally billions poured into the industry and CRM infrastructure, is the quality of the data. And the correlation there is highly dependent on the leadership of the organization and the maturity of their sales practices and processes and the inspection processes they put into actually qualifying the opportunities. When Karen went through the path to closure, it brings a maturity of thoughtfulness to have that two-way dialogue, that very nurturing collaborative conversation that absolutely is proven out to drive results in the companies that both Karen and Kevin have spoken to. On the AI front, we've learned that without that quality data and the leadership practices, we absolutely need to almost in many ways step back and recommend to the client that they have to improve in those areas. It's almost too much work to find companies that aren't ready to embrace AI, and having the appreciation of total quality or Six Sigma maturity in process excellence and operational excellence is absolutely one of our qualifying questions that we've learned in our journey at SalesChoice. But what I can advise you on is that we've also built out software very recently that actually, when we immediately derive the quality of the data, we do an assessment, and then we can now show the clients what data is complete, the quality of that data, and help them on their journey if they so choose by giving them, if you want to call it, the dance card on who's on point and who's not. So not everybody's ready to take on AI. Many companies are, I'm pleased to say. The reality is that these solutions are not going away. They're very powerful. They're uncannily smart about absorbing all of the muscle tissue of an organization and then pointing, your sales resources to areas that can actually have a more positive outcome. Okay, so the next question here, Kevin, I'm going to direct to you, is B2B sales productivity is declining year over year, like you've mentioned. Sales forecasting is both an art and a science. What should be the balance based on your experience? Or, are we going to be in an imbalance? Any thoughts there?
Well, this is an incredibly difficult time as sales professionals. And part of the reason for that is there are just simply so many distractions. You have so much information, and the clients, for the most part today, are incredibly well informed. And so there is a dynamic that is shifting in the industry today, where so much of the client preparation is no longer about getting facts and feeds and details like that, because all of that's usually available simply on the internet. The real question that clients are looking to understand now is, how is this going to create value inside of my organization, against my processes, against my priorities? The answers to those are not out on the internet. The answers to those are in the human-to-human strategic relationship between sales professionals and the executives that they're calling on. And so there is a shift taking place right now. And the reason I believe that why B2B is struggling the way it is today is that the selling organizations of this decade have not yet shifted to the new world of the informed executive with data and facts that now starts to liberate, well, what's my role then as the sales professional? And in fact, it is as a strategic problem-solving partner to the client. It isn't about bringing facts to the table, speeds and feeds and all that kind of stuff. It's the ability to listen, the ability to articulate, the ability to collaborate, and the ability to jointly facilitate a good, powerful decision in the eyes of the CEO, the CFO, the head of sales, and so on and so forth. The interesting thing is that the collaboration of path to closure, coupled with the power of what I believe the SalesChoice tool brings to the table, is almost like a bit of an audit process that now helps me as a sales professional say, am I really getting to the good stuff in this conversation or not? So am I helping make that transformation occur? So that's, I think, the shift that's happening, and certainly in the clients that I'm consulting with now, which are at the international level, that's the biggest shift that I'm trying to help them facilitate with their selling organizations, both in North America and in other parts of the world.
Thanks, Kevin. Next question is a little bit hard, but I'll take a whack at it. Is what will sales forecasting with AI be like in the next 5 years, 10 years? Okay, so I think there's a few things that are going on. First step is, with the AI engines, and once they're installed, obviously with machine learning, they keep learning. That's premise number one. What ends up happening there is you start to see the controllables and non-controllables that are underlying the opportunities. And you start to see how you could tweak things, i.e., if you alter pricing discount in a certain range, you likely will either increase or decrease your odds. It gives you kind of some simulations, simple things for resources. If you add maybe more of this resource mix or this product set added, it actually creates a higher buying propensity. So you start to get all these nuances. So what's going to happen in the future, and we're already underway with some of the new road mapping, we've basically created an avatar. Sally says it's still in its early days, but the vision around this avatar Sally effectively will become a natural language processing bot in many respects. So you can imagine waking up in the morning and Kevin saying to Karen something like this, Karen, looks like you've got 3 great commits here. And it might be Karen's little avatar responding back saying, yep, Kevin, these 3 are the most promising because of all these signals. So we're going to start seeing some very creative things. One is basically for managers, having the opportunity to have a sales bot agent that's actually Karen's agent that Karen trusts because of the accuracy underlying it. And in the future, we'll start to really see, I would say, more evolution of full sales bots, right? I don't think it's going to be in the next 3 years, but I think we're going to eventually find that, especially in some areas that are maybe more transactional, we will have more and more of these natural language processing bots. We're starting to see them even more. How that relates to sales forecasting is you can start thinking of all the use cases. And I think that's going to be the trick in this, so that they're thoughtful questions that make business sense, and they don't have to be rule-based logic, but you can inherently design the software that it learns in such a way that it can manifest those outcomes. So I'm excited about the future. I think we have an opportunity to reinvest the time to actually have more of these voice-to-voice conversations. I think part of the trick's going to be with these good methods and tools like Path to Closure or other tools, getting all of that absorbed right into native Salesforce or native Microsoft or native whatever, which CRM, because the more knowledge that's in one centralized area and the patterns you can actually continue to learn. That all aside, just today, the accuracies can be very, very high. So, those are just a few thoughts, I think, about the future that is, well underway and we're excited about. Okay, the next question, Kevin, is, obviously you've had exposure in 3 organizations to using the Path to Closure methodology that Karen talked about. Can you share some of your experiences, other stories that, that really made a difference as a result, or whether it's positive or negative, just add some other color commentary to the method?
Well, I'm currently teaching it to 2, multi-billion-dollar organizations, and what I'm fascinated by is the feedback from the teams that I've exposed to Path to Closure. Is they love it. They absolutely love it. They have never seen it done before, which is really fascinating. And so invariably, I always recognize, Karen in front of the teams and say, okay, let me tell you the background as to how this came about and who authored it, and tell that story. So what I say I've learned is that it is 100% a transferable methodology. It just plain works.
Thanks, Kevin. Karen, maybe we could, kind of broaden things, because obviously you've had a lot of exposure to different kind of sales aids and tools that can complement and augment the Path to Closure. Whatever the tools in your arsenal have you seen work the best that you think would also be helpful?
Well, tools as it specifically relates to forecasting that I think are really good would number 1 be Miller Hyman's strategic selling. We've used that through several different organizations, and essentially it's not really strategic selling. It is how to get a deal done. And it takes an x-ray essentially of where you are in your sales process. I think it's especially pertinent today because I just saw some statistics recently from, I think it was Gardner, about the number of people now involved in making any kind of purchase has gone up by 30 or 40% over the last several years. So these deals are getting more complex to bring home. You've got more stakeholders at the table. And Miller Hyman Blue Sheets, or strategic selling as it's called, is a terrific tool that allows you to take an x-ray on every single deal you're working, understand who the players are, understand and identify what your weaknesses are in that particular deal. And it starts out with a single sales objective that says, we want to sell General Motors, a large contingent of, let's say, copiers by October 31st, and what has to happen in order to make that go. But the output of going through a Blue Sheet review is a very detailed action plan on how you're going to close the gaps that you have. And you usually do it as a team effort, so you get some eyes and some input from others who aren't particularly as close to the deal as you might be. So that would be the one I would turn to.
Thanks, Kevin. Thanks, Karen. Kevin, any other thoughts from your side that you might add to that?
No, I think Karen summed it up very nicely.
Okay, perfect. So those are all the questions that we had at this point, everyone, and we're also getting close to the top of the hour. First, I'd like to thank both Karen and Kevin for their participation with us today. It's always a pleasure having you with us. And what I'd like to do next is to share some of our next upcoming webinar content, but also make you aware of a product that we'll be releasing here shortly when we send off the clip of this video. So we have been working on a little white paper that will be released with a copy of the video with the content. Expect that to come out over the next week, and that'll all be sent to all the participants. It'll also be up in our website in our resource library. Looking forward, we won't be having a webinar in August. We too need breaks from time to time. But we are very excited and passionate about the mindfulness topic that'll be coming up on September the 6th. And we're going to be bringing in Andrea Kiss. Andrea is an executive coach and a sales consultant in a firm called Boardroom Bootcamp. And what's interesting, when you take the path to closure, advanced AI, within kind of the worlds of sales and all of the dynamics that are going on and kind of the noise levels in so many different directions, human productivity has declined. And so I think what we're talking about today is all about focus. The path to closure brings focus on the right, next steps that the customer believes that can yield the success that they're trying to achieve and obviously stand for your success, versus us making the assumptions on the dates and the times that quite frankly reflect maybe the lack of depth and knowledge and that's behind the those milestones. And then the AI movement essentially can collect all the data, the relevancy, and statistically give very, very accurate indicators. The mindfulness is also the reminder that what's great about being human is being human. And in order to be effective as a human, we really need time to really reflect. And in our busy days, there's lots of research to show that sales professionals are not getting time to reflect. And that has huge consequences on judgment. So that'll be another interesting discovery point, just to kind of have those reinforcing loops culturally into organizations, so you can kind of get the balance between the art, I think, and the science. So thanks all of you, for attending. If you want to reach out to, Kevin, Karen, or myself, our details are there. And we thank you very much for joining our Predictive AI World Series. Have a wonderful day, and we'll look forward to continuing our conversation in September. Thank you very much.